What's up everybody, D-Man back into a brand new video, and today it is June 23rd, which means it is time to continue the tradition I started in 2015, meaning it's time to make another 15 things that need to happen in Legendary's Godzilla sequels. So in this one, the topic is obvious. We're talking about Godzilla vs Kong. This is another 15 things that need to happen in Godzilla vs Kong. I absolutely 100% totally forgot that I made these videos. I 100% forgot that I was supposed to do this. The only reason I remembered to record this was because I got a copyright claim on one of the previous 15 things, and I went, oh, when are those supposed to come out? And I checked, and it was like, oh, today. I have to make the video today, right now. I gotta record it and edit it quick. So that's where we're at, which of course led me to look back at the previous videos and realize that this is a fall from grace. I was so young and pure and good and nice looking in that first one. Oh man. I just hate this beard. I can't stand it. I want it gone. I cannot wait to get rid of the beard, and I cannot wait to get a haircut because I miss looking like I did in the older videos. Let's jump into this discussion talking about 15 things that need to happen in Godzilla vs Kong by recapping last year's list. Last year's list is clearly a very reactionary list. I was very afraid back then when making this list. I was afraid that Adam Wingard was not the right person to handle Godzilla vs Kong. You know, there isn't any more information that we know now than there was back then. We know so little more than we did 1 year ago today, but for whatever reason, I'm no longer worried. I have faith in him. I certainly didn't a year ago based on my list, but I don't know. I don't have a problem with Adam Wingard directing Godzilla vs Kong. I think he could do it. I'm excited to see what he does. But let's take a look at last year's list from June 2019. And I do, for the most part, agree with all of these things. If there's anything that I don't agree with, I will mention it now. Number 1, respect the source material. Number 2, respect the Monsterverse. Number 3, build upon the Chens, Russells, and Monarch. Number 4, bring Houston Brooks back. Number 5, reference the comics. Number 6, give Kong some time to shine. Number 7, make Kong formidable. That meant I wanted him to have intelligence, speed, sheer strength, the use of weapons. Well, that one turned out to be probably true. And I threw out the lightning hands as a potential bonus. Number 8, reuse classic themes. Number 9, Godzilla's turn against humanity. Number 10, Godzilla vs Kong in a city during the day. I actually will revise that statement. I would like to see Godzilla and Kong fight in a city, period. That's all I need. I just need them in a city. It does not have to be day, although I would like at least one daytime battle in this movie. Number 11, the rebirth of Mothra. Number 12, Godzilla's redemption. Number 13, don't make it edgy. Yeah, please don't. Number 14, don't have Godzilla and Kong team up. There's another, please, 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 please don't do it, please. God, it's called Godzilla vs Kong for a reason, please. And number 15, don't kill either monster. Then my bonus was continue beyond Godzilla vs Kong. As you'll see, this year's list has some similarities to that list, but not too many. Also, I wasn't even supposed to be able to make a list this year. The movie was supposed to be out. So number 0, the bonus starting right off the bat, just release the movie. Number 0, so it doesn't count, is release the movie. I want to see it. I'm down to wait as long as we need given the unprecedented situation we are living through, but just as long as the movie comes out at some point in theaters, please release the movie in theaters. Maybe I should specify release it in theaters. There you go. Number 1, take it seriously. King Kong vs. Godzilla is my favorite movie of all time. I absolutely love that movie. I think it's awesome. It's very nostalgic for me, but there are issues with it. And a lot of those issues stem from the tone of that movie. Ishiro Honda wanted to use Godzilla and King Kong to make a satire on advertising. And so as a result, the movie is incredibly silly and very campy. It was an intentional choice on his part, but I think it works to the film's detriment. So with Godzilla vs Kong 2021, please don't do the same thing again. Take it seriously this time. This is a serious story. It could be done very well if you handle it with the weight and gravity that it deserves. Adam Wingard has previously said that he compares the tone of Godzilla vs Kong to the tone of the 1954 Godzilla movie. I'm down to see a very dark version of this story. We have the exact polar opposite of that. So sure, give us the dark version. I am down to see that. I want to see this movie done right. I want to see it done seriously. Also, don't make the kids the stars. This isn't reason, another one, this kind of just goes along with Take It Seriously. I'm worried that Julian Dennison's character and Madison Russell are just going to be like palling around the whole movie, being like goofy little Gamera characters. I don't want to see children at the forefront of this story. I know they're not children, they're teenagers, but you understand my point. I don't want to see kids at the forefront of this story. They can be in it, but I don't want them to be the main characters. I don't want their little quests to be the quests that determine the fate of the movie. Number 2, and this one's very important. This one kind of builds upon what I talked about a little bit last year. Don't break the universe. Consistency is key, and there are a few things that we need to be consistent with. The first thing that we really need to be consistent with is the realism of the MonsterVerse. Yes, it is true that the MonsterVerse becomes less and less realistic with each movie. I have learned to accept that, although I would absolutely have loved to see the films adhere to what we saw in Godzilla 2014, where we always got a very grounded, realistic approach to them. That's not the way we went. Instead, we get less and less realistic with each installment. This one will probably be no exception. I don't have too much of an issue with that, just as long as they don't go too far away from what we've seen last. You can make a progression with each movie. That is fine. I am totally okay to see this progress both tonally and in terms of what we can see in the universe. But I don't want to see such a huge leap that things become massively unrealistic. I don't want us to suddenly wind up back in the Showa era Godzilla films. Keep it consistent with the realism of the universe so far. Expand upon it, sure, but keep it close to what we saw last. Next up is consistency on Skull Island. I've talked about this a little bit before, but Skull Island has a very distinct look to it, and I'm worried that we're going to lose that very distinct look. Skull Island was defined by Vietnam, which is where they filmed the movie Kong Skull Island, and they did not return to Vietnam to film Godzilla vs. Kong. They returned to Hawaii and visited some familiar set locations such as the Boneyard, and they went to Australia. Neither Hawaii nor Australia has the geography nor aesthetic of Vietnam, so I'm really hoping that in Godzilla vs. Kong, the look and feel of Vietnam is achieved to the best of their ability so that we have that consistency with Skull Island. Number 3, this one is probably the most important on the list. Keep it simple. Do not go crazy with this movie. It's a very simple premise. Godzilla and King Kong fight. There you go. Build on from there. That's all we truly need to have an awesome movie. So keep it simple. Don't throw everything you can into this film just because it might be the last of the MonsterVerse. That's one thing that I'm really worried about, is that this movie is going to be very overcrowded. I don't want to see tons of monsters going crazy all the time. We can have other monsters, sure. I'm okay to see other monsters in the movie. I just don't want them to take away from the point of the film. I don't want them to lessen the point of the fight. I don't want them to distract from the plot. They can be in the movie. We can have a Mass Awakening 2.0 type scene where we see more monsters in a quick montage. I don't care. We can even have Godzilla and Kong fight some other monsters, just as long as they are not detracting from the Godzilla vs. Kong fight itself, and just as long as they're not muddying up the plot to the point where it's suddenly no longer a Godzilla vs. Kong movie. The same deal goes for the team up. We don't need them to team up in this film. It's called Godzilla vs. Kong for a reason, because we want to see Godzilla and King Kong fight. We are not there to see Godzilla and King Kong be friends or team up against someone else. That's also a really silly idea, especially right away. I can see those monsters working together in the future post-fight, but right away, I don't buy it. But the thing is, if you introduce the team up element, you're suddenly making the movie much more convoluted than it needed to be in the first place, and we all saw how that went with Batman vs. Superman. Number 4, depth within the story. Godzilla King of the Monsters had an attempt. I don't think it was as deep as I would have liked, but it did attempt to have some sort of lesson or moral themes throughout the movie. That was all about environmentalism. That's what the message of Godzilla King of the Monsters was. It was an environmentalist movie. I'd like to see those ideas either expanded upon or new ideas introduced and expanded upon within Godzilla vs. Kong. I don't want it to be just a mindless action movie. I would like some sort of depth within the story. I think you could do some cool stuff with that. There's a lot of really interesting elements that have been set up in the MonsterVerse previously that you could expand upon here. You could do stuff with bioengineering. You could continue the nuclear allegory. You could continue the environmentalist messages. There's a lot of things you could do, but I don't just want it to be a big mindless movie. Number 5, and this is kind of retreading what we talked about last year, but it's a little more specific this time. I'd like to hear Godzilla's theme from Akira Ifukube return, and I would like to hear Max Steiner's King Kong music return. I don't think we're going to hear Steiner's King Kong music. I have a feeling we are just going to hear Ifukube's Godzilla theme, if that, but I would certainly like to hear both. Max Steiner's King Kong music is very powerful, especially when it's used staged right. It was done awesome in King Kong 2005. I needed more of that in my opinion, but it will always make an impact. It did in Ready Player One, so why not do it here as well? I would absolutely love to hear Max Steiner's King Kong theme return alongside Akira Ifukube's Godzilla theme in one movie. It'd be really cool to have a mashup song that had the two of them in it together. Junkie XL will be doing the soundtrack for Godzilla vs Kong, and so I hope he does something similar to what I just said. Now we're getting into some story notes. So those were all general notes about the movie. Now we're getting into more specific story notes, so let's jump into it. I'd like the movie to start out with the Mass Awakening. I'd like to see Kong's perspective of the Mass Awakening. It's the best sequence in the Godzilla King of the Monsters novelization, and I think it could be a very interesting starting out place for King Kong. It would be a great jumping off point for the movie, and a great way to kick Kong into action and develop his character from this one incident. I don't know if I've been numbering them the whole time, I forget. But number 7, the number 7 thing I want is the Brookses to return. I want to see Houston Brooks back, yes, but I also would like to see Aaron Brooks back. I don't need them to be massive roles in the movie. They could just be cameos, but I would like an acknowledgement of the comic books in the form of Aaron Brooks, and I would like Houston to return because he is, in a way, the face of Monarch for the Monsterverse, even though he's kind of a background character, all things considered. He was not the main character in Kong Skull Island, he was not the main character in any of the comics he's appeared in, and he was not the main character in King of the Monsters, certainly. But he has appeared in more Monsterverse things than anybody else, so I'd like him to appear in this movie as well, especially because we can't get Serizawa back. Unless we do. I would love to see Serizawa back in some sort of flashback, but I don't think that's going to happen. Continue Mark and Chen's relationship. That's number 8. Those are two characters who I think are pretty interesting. You know, they had some sort of weird chemistry going on in King of the Monsters. I'd like to see where that leads. I don't want them to just drop it and be like, whatever, that didn't happen, because it did. They were totally kind of into each other maybe, and I want to know what exactly was going on between them. But in addition to continuing their relationship, just build upon their characters. I'd like to see a little bit more of Mark Russell being a little reluctant to join Monarch, but doing it anyways. He didn't want to come back. He was forced back in action, and I'd like to see that continue, where he's maybe a little bitter to be back, but he also is doing it for Serizawa. I think that could be very interesting. And Chen, of course. I want Chen and Ling back because, yeah, they're the most interesting characters in the Monsterverse who we've spent the least amount of time with. Mothra's fairies, are you kidding me? Make them main characters. Both of them. Make both of them main characters this time. Number 9, break Madison Russell, but not too much. She should be devastated in this movie. She should be dealing with the emotional impact of everything that happened. It should be very hard on her, but she also shouldn't be edgy. You know, that's one thing that I talked about last year, is that I'm worried that they're going to make Madison Russell an edgelord. I don't want that. I would like to see her very broken, upset by what happened, have a little PTSD, but I'd also like her to still be her. I don't want her to be mischaracterized or way too grungy and edgy in this movie. That's number 9. Number 10, feel Emma Russell's impact. Emma Russell had a global impact. It wasn't just a few people who she messed with the entire world. I want to see how Monarch has dealt with her. I want to see what they have done since she has caused all these problems, since she unleashed Ghidorah, since she caused the Mass Awakening, sent out that video that spawned a whole bunch of rebels within Monarch to help release Behemoth and sabotage other missions to kill Titans. I want to see that stuff expanded upon in this movie. There should be some acknowledgement of her video. There should be some acknowledgement of the global impact that she had. The way I personally would do that is with Apex. I don't entirely know what Apex will be used for in this movie. I have theories that it's going to be something to do with Jonah Allen or Alan Jonah, depending on what you want to call him. But I'd like to see that group be comprised of a whole bunch of Monarch people who just defected from Monarch after Emma's video, where they were like, yeah, the Titans are the old gods. They deserve this planet more than we do. I think that could be a really interesting approach to take with Apex. Number 11, Serizawa's son. In the Godzilla King of the Monsters novelization, there's a moment that really blindsides the reader, where out of nowhere, they just casually mentioned that Dr. Serizawa has a son. And that's that. It's just like, yeah, this guy has a son. He's out there in existence somewhere. Where is he? I don't know. I want to see him in Godzilla vs Kong, though. I would like to see Serizawa's son kind of stepping up and trying to be a leader of Monarch, trying to fill his father's shoes. There's some mighty big shoes to fill, but I would like to see that played up. And I think it'd be interesting if he was a little bitter about his father, if he resented him just a little bit for liking Godzilla a little bit more than he liked his son. We never heard any acknowledgement of Serizawa's son within the movies. If you're gonna have this character randomly mentioned in the novelization, you might as well put him in the next movie and play it up where it's like, yeah, he didn't ever mention me. That way it's not just like, hey, I'm Serizawa's son, he sure did love me. It's a good thing he never mentioned me because now I can show up out of nowhere. I don't know, they need some acknowledgement of that. And while we're on the topic of sons, I would bring back Billy Chapman. I wanted to be a little cameo, just a sneaky thing for us fans to catch. And I think having Billy Chapman show up as a member of Monarch would be really awesome. Just so that we could see he has learned about what happened to his father and is trying to make up for his father's unfortunate death. That'd be really cool. Number 12, Madison and Kong. Madison had a nice little moment with Mothra, and I would like her to have a nice little moment with Kong. If you've heard my plot breakdown where I talk about my version of Godzilla vs. Kong, I talk about how Madison and Kong have a little Northern Lights moments where the two of them can bond underneath the Northern Lights so that I can kill two birds with one stone, where I can get Kong back under the Northern Lights and I can get Madison and Kong to have some sort of bonding relationship. Number 13 is Nature's Balance. I think Nature's Balance should be played up in the movie. I think it should be a point of contention within Monarch where people are debating between what Godzilla represents and what Kong represents. So far in the MonsterVerse, it appears that Kong represents humanity, or life more specifically. Kong represents life, while Godzilla represents Earth. They're kind of the protectors of those things individually. Godzilla doesn't care if life gets killed in the pursuit of Earth's balance and nature. Meanwhile, Kong wants to protect life, specifically innocent life. I'd love to see arguments break out within Monarch. I'd love to see some bickering about which one of those monsters is more in the right, which one of them means something more important to everything. Is the world the most important thing, or the people on it, the life on it? Is that the most important? I think stuff like that could be pretty cool. Number 14. This one's going to be kind of interesting given my previous lists, but I think I can justify it. Number 14 is don't make either monster the bad guy. And what I mean by that is don't just have one of them be evil just so that we can have them fight and the audience can root for the other monster. If Godzilla is going to go bad, have a reason for it. If Kong is going to go bad, have a reason for it. Don't just have them fight and have one of them be evil just so that we can root against them. I don't think either monster needs to be truly evil for us to root for one monster in the fight over the other. You know, you already have built-in teams, so they can just root for their character as it plays out. It's like a sporting event. You don't necessarily need to make either monster the bad guy either, because they're giant monsters. Of course they're gonna fight, especially because they're both alphas. They're both gonna fight because they both want to be in charge, or because one of them won't bow to the other one. Maybe they don't want to be in charge of everything, but they want to be in charge of each other probably, and so they're gonna fight. Why did King Kong and Godzilla fight in the original King Kong vs. Godzilla? It wasn't because King Kong was trying to stop Godzilla from being the bad guy, and it wasn't because Godzilla was trying to stop King Kong from being the bad guy. It was because big monsters like to fight. That being said, I would still have Godzilla lean more towards being a bad guy. I would have him be forced to cross the line into being more of a villain. Number 15, finally, let us see the kaiju. What I mean by that is let's have a daytime fight. I've said in previous videos that I'd like that daytime fight to occur on Skull Island, and then let us see them at the final battle. I don't care if it's at night, just as long as we can see them clearly. Don't cut away to the humans every 5 seconds. One thing that I do have a gripe with in King of the Monsters is whenever the monsters are on screen, the camera's just going crazy, and so it's always hard to take everything in and appreciate the fight. I don't quite want that in Godzilla vs. Kong. I want more Kong Skull Island-esque visuals where we can really see what's happening in the fights, and it's very well choreographed. Stuff like that would be a little cooler. Here's some bonus. Set up the future. Just in general, don't end it here with Godzilla vs. Kong. Have set up for the future just in case. Don't have the movie just be a trailer for the next movie, but set something up so that if you want to continue, you can continue. And then finally, give D-Man 1954 a cameo. This one's one we have the ability to affect. So what I'm going to need you to do is go down to the link in the description and sign the petition to get me a cameo in Godzilla vs. Kong. Not because I think it's actually going to happen, but because I'm genuinely curious to see how many people we can get to sign that. We've already passed like every other Godzilla vs. Kong petition out there with nothing more than a meme, so let's keep that ball rolling. How many people can we get to sign that thing, I wonder? I feel like we're close to peaking if we haven't already. But hey, I'll shout it out here just so that we can see if we can get randomly more. Well guys, that does it for this one. Yet another 15 things that need to happen in the bag. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. Make sure to let me know what you guys want in the movie down below. D-Man, out.